it on NYPD Blue because they thought it looked cool. And then another cop said, "Oh, that looks good. I got to get myself one of those."
Right.
But they just wanted the badges to stand out and not be on people's hips, and they did that. And so now they've been Hollywoodized, and now we've all seen CSI and all these shows and Law and Order. All of us have forensic labs in our kitchens. We all know how to analyze DNA, and we all know what not to leave behind at a crime scene.
Right.
We expect when police officers and our prosecutors go into a courtroom to have been able to trace where you've been on their iPhone 10 minutes after you've been there, because every detective on TV can access global satellites and track stuff. It's horse manure.
Right.
But it's affected what people and juries believe police are capable of and what they expect.
I don't think most people know that 50% of all violent crimes are actually unsolved at this point. That's the current solve rate for violent crimes.
I have a friend, Paul Bishop, who was a homicide detective for 30 years, the LAPD. And he says that Star Trek is more realistic than CSI, especially CSI Miami. He said, if a crime scene analyst ever showed up at one of my scenes in a chrome-plated Hummer in a low-cut shirt, or a woman, a low-cut shirt with a Glock on her belt, I would kick her ass out of the crime scene. I mean, and in questioning witnesses. It's ridiculous.
That's not how it works.
No. But I try to be authentic in my Eve Ronin novels. I do a lot of research. I talk to a lot of people in law enforcement. That doesn't mean I don't take liberties, but I want my books to feel so authentic that you don't notice when I'm just making the crap up and pulling it out of my butt. We'll have a lot of crap stuff I'm talking about. Must be the colonoscopy I had last week. It's still hanging over my head like a dark cloud.
Right.
But I put in enough truth and enough realism that you'll buy into what I'm saying and believe what I'm saying, even when I push the edges of reality for the sake of a good story.
Right. One of the best things I ever got from one of my writing teachers, he said, it does not have to be possible, it has to be plausible. You have to be able to buy it. You don't have to be able to, people don't necessarily have to believe you, they just have to be able to buy in.
Well, I've taken liberties here with this area.
Yeah.
I had a book called Bone Canyon, and when I was doing my thing here for Bone Canyon, someone asked me, where is Bone Canyon? It doesn't exist. I made it up. I combined two different canyons that didn't quite meet my needs into one that did.
Yeah.
Because
for me, in the Eve Ronin book, it was when she got to Malibu in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That was...
Yeah, it's not as bad as the TV show 24, where they get from Canoga Park to Ontario in 15 minutes.
Yes, even less. That is actually where I stopped watching the show.
Yeah,
it was like nobody gets to Ontario in 10 minutes. Come on. Speaking of TV, we're getting close to where we need to start questions, but let me ask you, what are you watching right now? What's really good? You are an expert.
I'm not an expert, but I just binged The Diplomat. I love that show. Oh, I love that show. And the balance they pull off between a political procedural and humor and family drama is amazing. And I love Slow Horses. Oh. Just a great show. I don't have time to watch a lot of TV. I find myself watching a lot of old 1970s Quinn Martin shows because they don't take a lot of my brain space and they get me in the mood to write. Yeah. But I should tell you real quickly a little bit about Fallen Star, which is the 6th Eve Ronin novel. You don't have to have read any of the previous Eve Ronin books, but the book will spoil 2 of the Eve Ronin books for you. Bone Canyon, which I just mentioned, another one called Movie Land, because events in those books come back to haunt Eve Ronin. And if you've read the Eve Ronin books before, you know that she's the youngest female homicide detective in the history of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And she got the job not because of merit, not because of experience, but because she leveraged a viral video at a time when the department was mired in a scandal to get herself promoted, to get some good publicity for the department. And she's out there trying to prove herself every day. And in the course of these books, she's revealed corruption within the sheriff's department, and now there's a TV series based on her in the books, and she's become this cultural icon. She's a celebrity cop. And this book, Fallen Star, is about her falling. She has now been doing this long enough, actually only about a year and a half in book time, but some of the mistakes she made in earlier books come back to haunt her and could absolutely devastate her career and could even get her killed if she solves this case. So she's torn between, do I save my own ass, career-wise and maybe heartbeat-wise, or do I solve this case? And meanwhile, she has to live with the image of herself, the idealized image of herself that's on TV every day.
Right.
So she's running into people in Calabasas who are confusing her with what they're seeing on TV. I love how you jumped out of that helicopter onto that runaway train. I never did that.
Yeah, that's not me.
That's not me.
TV show.
So she finds herself also having to live up to an ideal, not just that she set for herself professionally, but one now that's been created for her on television. So I deal a lot in this book with that clash between reality and fiction and how it's tearing Eve Ronin apart. And the way my books have a way of coming true, there's a TV series now being developed with Madison Lintz from Bosch playing Eve Ronin. Mm-hmm. So there's a good possibility that by the time the next Eve Ronin book comes out this time next year, there could be an Eve Ronin TV show. Right. It's weird. It plays with my head.
And on the show, there will be an Eve Ronin who's being played by another actress, and another actress playing Eve Ronin. And,
but even for Madison Lintz, who's 25 years old and has been playing Maddie Bosch on Bosch, right, who was a uniformed police officer, she's right where Eve Ronin was when Lost Hills started. She's it's like, I've been training for Eve Ronin.
Right.
So she's very excited to play the part. She's like, I wrote it for her.
Yeah. I've read a lot of your books, and I do think Eve Ronin's my favorite character of yours so far. I still have a soft spot for the dead man.
I wrote some horror novels, yeah.
But this book is, I read it in one sitting, and
oddly enough, I wrote it in one sitting.
And it's incredibly fast-paced. It's a lot of fun, and it's just you've created this character who's fully realized and just goes out there and acts in a world we can recognize. It's really important.
Oh, thank you.
We have time. We wanted to start questions from the audience. If you want to stand up and shout out your question, or do you guys have another mic? Do you want to do it that way? No? Okay, just come on, just stand up.
Dennis is going to stand up and say, I'm tired of you trashing Calabasas, the city I created. Get the hell out of town.
We love reality shows.
Oh, yeah.
That's what this is. Clive Cussler writes stories that refer back to history for something anywhere from 100 to 1,000 or 2,000 years ago, and then it creates a plot using technology and so forth of today. If you were to try to look at the history of this area, like all the way back to Rancho El Escorpion and Chief Odom getting a land grant here, and then project that forward to what's happening literally today, is that something that you've explored in the past and dealt with?
Well, I haven't explored that, but I've explored that idea. I wrote a book, actually it came out 2 years ago, called Calico. And it's not set here in Calabasas, it's set out in Barstow. And it takes place in present day and 1883. And the two storylines share the same dead body. And allowed me to compare and contrast Calico, which that whole area around Yermo has not really changed in 200 years. And to what you're talking about, talk about what it was like then, what it's like now, and how some things have changed, some things haven't, and what the future could hold. And that was very exciting for me. And in writing the Eve Ronin books, I always read about Calabasas history, because I want, when Eve goes somewhere, to be able to drop little nuggets of Calabasas history. And when you look into the frontier past of Calabasas, it's pretty bloody and interesting. Even the movie-making past of Calabasas. And I talked to Brian Rooney a lot about the movie-making past of Calabasas. He's sort of our historian here at the library of all things Calabasas. And it does inspire me in what I'm going to be writing about next. I wrote a whole book about Malibu Creek State Park. I wrote a whole book about Amundsen Ranch. So my books, in a way, are historical about Calabasas. At the same time, they're contemporary, but I hope they don't read that way. I just want them to read like fast-moving crime novels, but they're assaulted with some history of the area, so the people who are reading them can become emotionally invested in our community. And I'm surprised how popular the videos are that I shoot around Calabasas to help people visualize what I'm writing about. Because people's idea of Calabasas is what they see on the Kardashians, or the Calabasas of Ray Donovan, which wasn't even shot here. It was shot in Valencia. So I want to do my part to talk about this area a little bit, to make it my own.
Yes, sir.
Have you written books outside of the crime and mystery genre?
Yes, I have. I wrote a book called The Walk about a guy who's stuck in downtown LA when the big one hits. And he has to walk from downtown LA to his gated community in Calabasas across this landscape of destruction. And along the way, he becomes a different man than the one who left his home that morning. I've written, as he mentioned, some horror novels. But I would say most of my books are about crime because I find crime is a great narrative engine. There's always something at stake. There's always a puzzle to solve. There's always narrative momentum. There's always conflicts. I've written, TV, I've done, Michael Burke is here. He created Baywatch. I wrote up for Baywatch. I wrote about lifeguards. I wrote She-Wolf of London about werewolves. I wrote The New Adventures of Flipper about a damn flipper, a dolphin rather. I've written about many things in TV, but in books, I've primarily been about crime.
Yes, sir.
Your brother is also a mystery writer?
My brother Todd would say that I'm a hack popular fiction writer. He writes literary fiction that can be appreciated on a higher level. But yes, he's a crime writer as well. We're both New York Times bestselling authors, but I will say that I hit #1 and he hit #6 the same week.
There were 2 Goldberg brothers on the
bestseller list
in the same week.
But he and I both write.
Pretty cool.
We both write crime for the same reason. We both have very similar senses of humor. We both share the same publicist. Poor woman has to live with both of us. But he, unlike me, he does move in these literary circles. He was nominated for the LA Times Book Prize, which is one of the highest literary honors you can get in this country. He runs a graduate creative writing program at UC Riverside's Palm Desert campus. He's an exceptional writer, but we write very different takes on crime.
Yes, sir.
The body in the barrel, didn't that really happen? I remember reading something.
That's where I got the idea. A body washed up in the Malibu Lagoon, and I pulled that clipping out, and yeah, they did find out who it was. I don't remember, but I just used that as inspiration. In Fallen Star, there's a helicopter that slams into the hillside at which we all know when that happened, and Kobe Bryant and all that. But in fact, I interviewed the NTSB strike team that came here to investigate that case. And I told them I wasn't writing about Kobe Bryant or that particular helicopter crash, but I was going to be writing about a helicopter crash in Calabasas, and I wanted to know what the process was and how they worked with the sheriff's department. And I was stunned how forthcoming and helpful they were. They were great. They were great. Until Jennifer Situ became captain of the Lost Hill Station, nobody there would talk to me. I was persona non grata. They would not help me at all. I had to get a member of our city council to get me a map of their jurisdiction, even though it's public. They have no right to withhold it from me. They were just unwilling to help me at all. Jennifer came in and she said, "I am Eve Ronin. Whatever you need, Lee."
When you're interviewing people, do you record the interviews or do you just remember it and go home?
I have found if I have a tape recorder there, it makes them a little self-conscious. So I will take notes if I'm talking to them over the phone. If I'm having dinner with them, I just try to keep it in my head. Now, I wrote a book, or I started writing a book on spec that I haven't been able to get back to because I have all these contracts. But it's also set in the Mojave Desert involving first responders. And about a year ago, I went out there and I spent 3 days interviewing first responders. And I did record my interactions with them. Now, some of them said, I don't want to be on, it's not tape, I don't want to be recorded. But I did do that because I didn't want to miss a thing. I wanted to really pay attention to what they were talking about. They were giving me too much good stuff that I knew I would forget. So that I recorded. And then uploaded to a great program called Otter AI, which transcribes it all, summarizes it, tells you at what point, it's great. It made my life really easy.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your process? Do you outline? Do you have a room full of Post-its everywhere? Or do you just follow your instincts and take it one step?
I am a firm believer in outlining. I'm not one of these seat-of-the-pantsers. There was a television writer-producer named Stephen J. Cannell, who was a big influence on me. He created the A-Team and the Rockford Files and all these great shows. And he says, it's one thing to just get in the car and say, I'm going to drive. It's another to say, I'm going to go to New York. Now, that doesn't mean you won't stop other places along the way, but at least when you get in the car, you know where you're going. So I like to know I'm going to New York. So when I'm writing a book, I beat it out like a TV show. I mean, I'm trained from TV. So before I can write an episode, I have to get the story approved by the studio and the network. And then I have to write an outline and get the outline approved. And then while I'm writing the script, there are people using the outline to cast and build sets and find locations and prepare budgets. So I have to write to that outline. And what's nice about an outline is you're not making the story up as you go along. You're not finding the story. You know what the story is. Now you're coloring between the lines. You're finding the character moments. That doesn't mean you can't deviate. You can't deviate that much in television because people are prepping off your outline. But in books, I write a rough version of a television outline for myself. And I call them living outlines. Because when I start writing, I find myself changing. Guys who are supposed to die, live. People who are supposed to live, die. And I keep rewriting my outline to match what I've written. I end up finishing my outline about 2 weeks before I finish my book. So I'm always revising my outline, but I always know where I'm going. I don't want to sit at a computer and go, what am I writing about? I mean, I have friends who make it up as they go along, and they have gotten 2/3 of the way through a book and realize there's no book there, or don't know where it's going. It's especially important in a whodunit to know what the clues are. Because when you're writing a whodunit, you're not just telling a story, you're playing a magic trick. I want you to look over here while I'm doing this right here. And you're creating a puzzle, you're creating a game at the same time you're telling a story. And you have to make sure the game works, that the puzzle works, that your misdirection works. I can always tell. I would confidently say 90% of the time when I'm reading a book by someone who is not outlined. You can see them struggling and then realizing when they've realized which way they're going to go, and they go that way, and they don't go back and get rid of the crap where they were treading water trying to figure out where to go. Maybe that's because I'm like a contractor when I'm reading a book. I'm sure a contractor looks at a building and sees how it was built and understands the framing. I read a book and I can see the making it up as they go along. I can see the moment they had the inspiration. I can see the stuff they should have cut. I can see the framework, and almost, if it's an honest mystery, I can always see the real clue in whodunit, if it's a fair mystery.
I think we have time for one more. Yes.
You mentioned your television work so much and how it's a foundation for now. What was your favorite TV show to work on and why?
Well, politically, since I'm on camera and this will be on the internet, I'll say my favorite show is the one I'm doing right now called You're Killing Me, starring Brooke Shields, that'll be airing on AMC and Acorn in May 2026. It's a lighthearted mystery, and it's really good. I've never done anything better or had a better time with a cast or crew in my life. But a strong second would be Diagnosis Murder, which I just had a blast doing. I mean, I was the executive producer with William Rabkin on that show for, 3 seasons. We did close to 100 episodes, and we did all different kinds of mysteries. We had a wonderful time working on it. Dick Van Dyke was a pleasure. We really got a chance to find ourselves. It wasn't a show that broke new ground. It wasn't a show that is a classic that everyone's going to do. It wasn't The Sopranos. It wasn't a show that makes careers, but it was a show that made me happy to do.
That's great.
We have
Yeah.
a little more time.
Oh.
We do?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we go, can you just talk about your background?
Oh yeah, let me grill him real quick. You were a successful novelist, writing
Yes.
great thrillers. He and I have done panels together. I've read his books. Somebody came along to you and said, hey, Robert B. Parker's dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
3 other authors have tried continuing his series.
Right.
Would you like to do that now? What was your reaction when you were asked to fill those shoes that had already been filled a couple times?
Right. They're enormous shoes to fill, but I was immediately like, my agent came to me and said they're looking for a new writer on Jesse Stone, who is one of Robert B. Parker's iconic characters. He's a police chief in Paradise, Massachusetts, which is a very wealthy seaside community outside of Boston. And he was the first character where Parker had written in third person. He wanted to try a different thing. I'm a big Parker fan, have been since high school, like you. And they said, and my agent said, it's a really tight deadline. And I said, where do I sign up? I didn't hesitate at all. I was just immediately excited. because it's, even if it is a really daunting task to try to write at least as well, or not embarrassingly badly, in the wake of Robert B. Parker, who wrote these amazing books.
Well, what you did, I've said this to you before, what he did that was brilliant was instead of trying to mimic Robert B. Parker's voice, which the first writer on that series tried to do, and it was cringe-inducing, you approached it like Elmore Leonard. It's like, if Elmore Leonard decided to write a Jesse Stone, how would he do it? And you got us into the minds of the colorful crooks, and you gave us a Jesse Stone in Elmore Leonard role, which I thought was a brilliant new take on the series. It energized it. It took it in a different direction, rather than you being haunted by Reed Farrell Coleman's very distinct take on the series. Was it hard, though, to jump into an existing series that wasn't your own and make it your own, to find that voice?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I tend to think about these, I'm not as attached to Jesse Stone, or I wasn't as attached to Jesse Stone when I started. I was more of a Spencer fan. I knew more of Spencer's lore. I'd read several of the Jesse Stone books, many of the Jesse Stone books, as it turned out, because I reread them all before I started writing, and it was like, oh my gosh, so many of these I'd already read. But I was always, so it gave me a little distance on the character, because he's not as perfect as Spencer is. Spencer is, and I've said this many times, and I'll say it many more times, Spencer is Robert B. Parker's perfect knight. He is indestructible, he is untarnishable, he is pure of heart. Jesse Stone is human. He is an ex-drunk, recovering alcoholic, had a horrific relationship with his ex-wife, was broken in so many ways, and I was like, that I can do.
Yeah.
That I can handle. I can't write a perfect hero, but I had so much more sympathy for Jesse.
I loved the early Robert B. Parker books. And by the way, I wrote for Spencer for Hire. That's how I broke into TV, writing 4 episodes of Spencer for Hire. But those books, when Susan goes, Spencer, I know you just shot 3 people in the face, but you're such a noble man, such a good man. When you kill, it's for righteous causes. And can we have sex 3 more times tonight? Because I can't keep my hands off you.
Yes.
I'd love to, Susan. We'd be fools not to.
We'd be fools.
Yeah, it's like it's comical. I've been making fun of the Spencer books in my Sharp and Walker novels because I decided for fun I'd have one of my characters married to a shrink just so I could make fun of Spencer. And he said, "You're supposed to be saying how noble I am and how you can't keep your hands off me." She's like, "Would you just go change the baby's diaper and shut up?"
Just shut up. It's the great thing and the challenging thing about Parker is that you have to straddle, he was one of the first writers to actually write about the cost of doing all these horrific things that we also see as heroic. Like if you kill somebody for the right reasons, that's the whole thing of our books. We write that all the time. But in the real world, that's of course a horrific and massive, crushing burden for a human being to carry.
That's why in my books, when Eve Ronin has a physical, something happens to her, she's thrown off a cliff, she's still feeling the pain in the next book.
That's what I really loved about this, that she is limping for a long time.
Yeah, she does not get up and run around after she's had a beating, and the beating lasts more than one novel. I mean, it's like, I wanted to show the human cost of and it's a running joke that she can't seem to solve a case without ending up in the ER.
Right.
She's broken her sternum twice.
Yeah, she wears incredibly thin Kevlar on her clothes because.
So do I.
Yeah, and that's me too.
I'm wearing a Kevlar jock right now.
You'd be fools not to.
Yeah. Well, we should let you guys, I know you're probably all hungry, wanting to eat dinner.
Yeah.
We're glad to sign our books. As I mentioned before, if you buy a new copy of one of my books, you get another one of mine, Ashes Never Lie, for free as long as copies hold out back there. We would love to sign a book for you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all so much. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah.